Good morning. How's everybody feeling on this Tuesday? Hope you're off to a great start. Thanks for hanging out with us. Lucas and myself, we have got you until 1 o'clock. Join in at any point. 615-737-1045. We got Pate State coming in studio. The great Josh Pate, future college football commissioner, whatever that looks like in the future. He'll be in studio here in just about 18 minutes. We got some SEC discussions to have. We are also going to get into the latest on DeAndre Hopkins, a successful visit here to Nashville yesterday. But the University of Tennessee punching their ticket to the College World Series, a 5-0 victory late into the evening. Or I guess if you're on, so they would be in, are they in the Eastern time zone in Hattiesburg?
No, Central Time.
Okay.
What are you talking about, Eastern Time Zone?
I mean, I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me that Knoxville is in the Eastern time zone and Nashville is in the Central time zone. It doesn't make sense to me that Indianapolis is in the Eastern time zone and Nashville is in the Central time zone. Time zones don't make sense.
Mississippi is west of us.
That doesn't matter to me. Either way, they're going to the College World Series. What I'm trying to say, it was very early into the morning or late into the evening, depending on what time or what time zone you were watching that game in.
It was.
That's my point. Because I was tweeting about the end of the NBA Finals, because that game, whether you want to talk about it being well played or not, I don't know how many people in the audience were watching Tennessee from the jump as opposed to catching the end of Game 5 and the Nuggets obviously winning the NBA championship last night. Nikola Jokic, the most unenthused champion I've ever seen in my lifetime. He just wants to go home. That's what he kept saying. But I was tweeting about the end of the basketball game because that's where I started, obviously, because the Vols getting weather delayed until, they didn't start until like 8 or 8:30 after what was scheduled to be a 5 p.m. Central Time.
Oh, it was a 9:05 first pitch.
First pitch. So by the time I wrapped up primetime, the Vols game was just starting and the basketball game was ending. And I was tweeting about the basketball, and my colleague, Will Bowling, tweeted me and said, "Buck, the Vols are on." And I flipped over. It's the top of the second inning. I'm like, it'll be there. It'll be there when I finish the basketball game. I promise I'm going to watch the end of this. And I stayed up. For the baseball. I was fading fast there. But honestly, it looked like Southern Miss might have the opportunity to get on the board late in the game. Tennessee did well to manage that, and 5-0 the victory, advancing to the College World Series out of the Hattiesburg Regional. It was kind of. Did you watch any of Vitello's post-game this morning? I had to wait until this morning. I wasn't going to wait up for Twitter clips and whatnot last night.
Yeah, I caught some of it.
But he's just he's coming in groggy and hoarse to the post-game press conference, and he just croaks out 8 a.m. recruiting flight. Hopefully that game was enough for the recruiting, basically was the line. And that is the life of a college coach. But it speaks to everything that they've done, right? Recruiting is the reason that they're here. He continues to tirelessly recruit. You see the dividends of that in the way that the talent comes through in a big spot, game in and game out as of late. You've got the transfers that Vitello brought into the program, and Maui Ahuna. You've got Griffin Merritt. Zane Denton drove in all 5 runs for Tennessee in that College World Series clinching win. So the dividends of that are evident. And it's a credit to the team, it's a credit to the staff, and it's a credit to Tony Vitello for everything that they've been able to do. So congratulations to the Vols. Congratulations to Vols fans. And at this point, it's going to be fascinating to see how this plays out. I don't know how I feel about this team relative to the last Tennessee team, for example, that made the College World Series.
It's completely different.
It does feel that way, right?
No, it is. It's completely different. The entire backdrop of the season couldn't be more different than last year.
So from the standpoint, does that give you less confidence about them? Because I think that while overwhelming success in the regular season, for example, would lead people into a sense of security that team would be able to continue that level of performance into the postseason, I think there's a big enough sample size of, and you can cite the individual sports and the degree of randomness that's in them, but it's kind of like the Preds and the President's Trophy a couple years ago, right? They're overwhelming the regular season. They peter out in the playoffs, and you're looking around and you're saying, what the hell happened here? Is this what the run was going to be? Is it a Game 6 loss to the Pittsburgh Penguins, a President's Trophy in the following season, and a disappointing couple of playoff appearances after that? Tennessee baseball not having the dominant regular season that they did a year ago, but still finding ways to kind of problem solve, right? Sticking to what's been their most consistent tool, their pitching, throughout the course of the season. Tony Vitello making the necessary changes to the lineup and, after each of these series, and you're trying to problem solve in real time. Okay, you've swept Vanderbilt. It feels like a turning point. You turn around and you have a disappointing end in the SEC tournament. Now you're getting ready to go through the different situations that the regional and the super regionals are going to present to you, and you manage to do that in stride. I think there's an element of this, and I don't know if it's just because I've seen it play out in a couple of different ways, whether it's the Titans, the Preds, locally in the last couple of years, but it doesn't have to be overwhelmingly dominant in the regular season to be able to find ways to have postseason success.
That's just college baseball.
Sure.
I mean, the best team, quote unquote, best team in college baseball has not won the national championship in decades. That's just kind of how the sport goes. I mean,
Ole Miss last year, right?
Yeah, it's every year. Every year is a good example of it. But Tennessee was a better team last year than it is this year. I mean, there's no question about that. The power hitting, they didn't have as many issues with errors in the outfield, but they were able to kind of clean up that stuff going into regional and super regional play. And the two biggest issues Tennessee was facing all year, clutch hitting and errors defensively, kind of got cleaned up. And those are pretty much the two things that have them in this spot now, especially the clutch hitting, especially from Zane Denton, who kept them alive in the regional against Clemson in that 14-inning ball game, and then his big swing yesterday that really blew the game open, made it 4-0, and Tennessee just never looked back.
So we will start to see the first day of the College World Series will be Friday at this point, and that will continue on through the weekend before they get the championship game off the ground on Monday, June the 26th. At this point, I'm looking at the NCAA's website. Do we have the bracket, don't we?
Yeah, Tennessee will play LSU Saturday night.
That's right. LSU is the first round opponent. A really, really good team, a historically great program at this point. And I think that the challenge for Tennessee, is an obvious one. How well they manage, I think is going to be, based on the way that they've found ways to win games throughout the course of this regular season and through this postseason so far. I don't know necessarily how to feel about them against LSU in this situation. I know that there's been a little bit of a history of chippiness there, right? Who's our guy at the ESPN Baton Rouge?
Oh, we had T-Bob Hebert.
T-Bob Hebert.
Tennessee faced LSU in the regional last year, basically threw a retirement party for Paul Minieri that year.
Yes.
Which they did last night for Southern Miss's head coach, who called it a career after 14 seasons at Southern Miss. So, yeah, that'll be interesting. LSU under a new regime, and Tennessee, having already lost a series in Baton Rouge this season, will open up College World Series play against them Saturday. Remember the last time Tennessee was in this position, they went 2 and done. Lost to Texas to open up in 2021, and I cannot remember who eliminated Tennessee in their second game of the 2021 College World Series, but definitely going to look for a better showing here. But 3 SEC teams out of the 8, more than any conference as per usual.
Just rattled it off very casually. It's true. Those are the facts. So we'll keep an eye on that. We'll obviously talk more college baseball as that game gets closer. We'll catch up with Mike Wilson, I'm sure, at some point in the week. Mike can't catch a break. I felt so bad for him after I said, well, I hope for your sake everything starts as planned at 5 o'clock. And then sure enough, 9:05, 9:15, first pitch at that point between Tennessee and Southern Miss last night. But again, Tennessee advancing, doing so. It never, despite it being a 5-0 lead and a Tennessee lead for the entire game, there was still an element of drama that kept you watching throughout the course of this. The pitching for Southern Miss was just good enough to keep Tennessee at bay in certain moments. And obviously, they found ways to break through. Lucas pointing out Zane Denton. And I mentioned a couple of transfer players that Tennessee has found success with throughout the course of this season that were able to drive some runs in. But it did feel like Tennessee defensively was prepared. They were able to handle the situation. And while it did feel like Southern Miss was threatening, basically throughout the entire course of the game, Tennessee was able to manage it in a way that I wouldn't call it comfortable. Like, I wouldn't say that Vols fans were comfortable watching that game last night, despite looking at if you were box score scouting today, you woke up and saw the box score, said 5-0. Oh, comfortable win.
Yeah, not even in the top of the ninth where it's 5-0 and you only need 3 outs and, Southern Miss gets 2 on with no outs. Suddenly that BVS starts to creep in and you're getting kind of nervous and Chase Burns looks a little shaky and then he kind of gets it back and pulls himself together and closes it out for them. Mike Wilson talked about Tennessee's advantage on the mound going into yesterday, and that played out. Drew Beam and Chase Burns were fantastic last night.
Yeah, and like at the point when they pulled Drew Beam, like he seemed very understanding. Like sometimes those moments can be, for obvious reasons, it's very emotional, but everybody seemed to understand the plan that was in place. They all seemed to manage it well, and even when there were warnings, I mean, throughout the course of this super regional, and really anytime Tennessee plays anybody, it feels like there's warnings handed out for celebrations that have been fine throughout the course of the regular season. All of a sudden, they're very, very, they've been paying a lot closer attention to it, it feels like, throughout the course of regionals and super regionals this year, which is unfortunate because I think that takes some of the fun out of it. But it was a fun game last night. Congratulations to Tennessee, as I mentioned, and we'll keep an eye on things as that continues to progress. 615-737-1045 is how you join the discussion. We are going to take a look at some of the biggest headlines going around in the NFL right now. We've obviously been talking about DeAndre Hopkins. That is the biggest headline. But some other stories that have been developing out of mandatory minicamp for most teams this week and throughout the course of the voluntary work we'll get to coming up next. Not a better way to put Josh Pate in a good mood than this particular song. I was out on the water the other day. I sent both Josh Pate and Lucas Panzica screenshots of my musical selections, and I feel like you both were very proud of me at this point.
The multiple Fleetwood Mac hits. You were just playing basically rumors, and then I told you to explore Silver Springs. Let me just shut up for a second. Let me let this simmer.
Take it up, Lucas.
Rest in peace.
Where'd those incense candles go?
We probably have some in here. God knows what Slay's been keeping in his little cubby of a lunchbox type situation.
Yeah, so you're out there, you're on the high seas, and you're playing Fleetwood Mac hit after Fleetwood Mac hit. You thought of me, and I appreciate that.
I did.
You didn't post the shirtless pics that the world wanted, but you did post the screenshots of the playlist, and that was a solid option B for everyone.
So you want thirst traps on the IG?
Well,
Is
you're
that what
not
you're
that
asking for?
disgusting fat slob you used to be. Look at you now. You're incredible. You're svelte, and you know how rarely I use that word.
No, it's true, but you understand, and I appreciate your kind words, friend. Thank you, both on the front end and on the back end. That didn't feel like necessarily like a compliment, but I'll take it. You, of course, the place where this ultimately has to come back to, which is disappointment in me. I can't swim.
Oh, no.
I have to wear the life jacket on the boat.
So
Not just for me, but for the sake of everybody involved in the proceedings that day. So I am a 2 life jacket individual, one up top, one down low, and a noodle for me to get in the water.
So in your former life,
That's right.
you would have not only been T-shirt in the pool kid, you would have been life jacket, T-shirt over in the pool kid. Now you're just life jacket for different reasons.
See, never been a T-shirt in the pool kid. I think there was one pool party in grade school where a parent yelled at somebody, one of the T-shirt pool kids, that this was not a laundry machine and you should get your laundry out of the pool immediately. Wow. It was a very, very young and fat-shaming experience that I'm sure shaped that person's outlook for the rest of his life. Either way, yes, it's out of necessity. I can't swim, so. While I am down to, I'm going to Vegas next week, so perhaps you'll get poolside thirst traps. But on the life jacket is a necessity.
I understand. I grew up in Georgia, and that's where Lake Lanier is. And Lake Lanier, you ever read up on Lake Lanier? It's tough to joke about it because people die, but the joke is that people die. But it's anytime you see in Georgia, in the For You section of Twitter, Lake Lanier from about the month of March to October never stops trending in the For You section because people die there every day.
Okay, so
yet people treat it like an amusement park.
Is this a toxicity situation? Is this motor or boat sports accidents?
All of the above.
Okay,
but this is where you got to read up on it because there's pretty sinister history. It's a man-made lake. And they had to do certain things to certain communities to build the man-made lake, and so some say it's haunted. And honestly, as far as evidence of haunting goes, it's starting to stack up.
It's starting to reclaim the amount of life that's been disturbed. So we're not here to talk about evil demon lakes in Georgia with Josh Pate. Late Kick Live. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't done it already. I don't know what to tell you at this point. It's the best college football show out there. Go subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you can't catch it live, catch the podcast wherever it is that you get your podcasts. It has been the discussion of the offseason.
I'm so proud of you for that.
I'm learning.
You've come so far.
We're going to test that here in a couple of weeks, it sounds like, at some point once we get to the actual offseason.
The problem is it very much exists in the NFL world. Like nothing is happening in the world of the NFL right now except a couple free agent visits. And so it's hard to blur those lines.
So I'm doing my best, though. These are baby steps, much like swim lessons. The spring meetings for the SEC in Destin in particular, a lot of headlines. We'll have this mutated schedule release show because we don't have enough schedule release shows in our lives coming up to announce what the 2024 SEC schedule, including Texas and Oklahoma, will look like, but that's a temporary stay. Your thoughts on the decision that was put in place for the immediate and what it says about the long term?
Well, I'm looking over at your TV. I can't believe people watch this every morning. It's crazy.
First take.
So
it gives me life.
Gives me hope. Let's get back to radio here.
Okay.
So the whole thing was the 8-game versus 9-game conference schedule, which it's not like it's a new trending topic. It's been around for a while. They announced that they're going to do the whole 1-year stopgap thing. Okay, so here's what everyone wants. Everyone wants you to say whether you're for 8 games or for 9 games, and they want basically what everyone wants these days, which is your opinion in a screen grab or a soundbite or a snapshot, and that should be it. But in reality, and this is going to shock you, there's context and nuance to this.
No.
And that's where you lose about 80. Someone just turned the radio off now. If they didn't,
turned on first take.
If they didn't already bail from college baseball talk, they just bailed right now.
I'll bleep you.
Well,
all right, it's a local team. All right, I'm trying.
I stayed tuned in.
You're the
and
worst.
I knew you were like a preacher who's done with his sermon 15 minutes before 10:30. He just has to stretch. So anyway, let me get back on topic.
Oh my God! I was looking around and Lucas was like, "I really don't have anything more on college baseball here," and there was no help whatsoever.
Couldn't swim there either.
I've done this radio thing before. I didn't always just talk college football.
Oh,
so
my
I used to have to
God.
talk NBA finals, and I know what that feels like.
I do care, and I'm happy for them.
Yeah, go team. Ping. So we were talking about schedules. Yeah. All right. So there's this talking point from you people in Big Ten country. There's this talking point.
You people.
That the SEC is soft because they only want to play 8 conference games and because they put those FCS tomato can cream puff games in November. And on the surface, I don't disagree with you. So to make my opinion public for the umpteenth time, I'd rather them play 9 conference games. Makes for more entertaining inventory. I would rather them not have to send UT Chattanooga to be sacrificed in Tuscaloosa. I don't enjoy watching that. That's not appointment television. However, I'm just a viewer. I'm not the commissioner of the league. If I'm the commissioner of the league, I have to look out for the best interest of the league. And even then, I think the best interest of the league is playing a more competitive schedule, but it's not in a vacuum. Like the world doesn't fall off at the edge of the SEC footprint. You've got the rest of the country to deal with, and you're competing on a national landscape for college football playoff spots. So what they said was threefold. 2 of their reasons are pure BS. They're excuses. I don't care about them. Reason number 1, some of those teams are just worried if they add a 9th conference game, they'll struggle to make a bowl. I don't care about that. Others want to know if ESPN's going to pay them more money for adding that 9th conference game. I don't care about that. None of that really impacts me, nor do I care about it. But the third thing, it actually has relevance, and that is when you say the playoff committee's unclear about how much they value strength of schedule, that means something. That carries weight. And you can look back at them all you want to and say, oh, you're just scared. Go play the games. Okay, that's how a competitor should feel. But how a businessman should feel, how someone who is building their opinion on logic should feel is, well, I'm going to ignore that voice, and I'm going to continue to ask, how much are you going to value strength of schedule? As I've sat here in this chair many times and told you, one of the biggest lies in college football is you are what your record says you are, because that's not the case. Unlike the pro game, that's not the case in college football. So why would I load my schedule up because people are calling me scared in June, only to have those same people come back to me in December when one of my teams is 10-2 and there's a Pac-12 team that's 12-0, and have them scream in my face, well, you can't get in over an undefeated Pac-12. That's an undefeated Power 5 team. You are what your record says you are. Well, I look back at them and say, but my 10-2 team has 8 opponents in the top 30, whereas that undefeated Pac-12 team played 1. How is this apples to apples? It's not even apples to bananas. It's not even the same sport they're playing. Forget all that. You are what your record says you are. As long as that mentality could be in the room, I don't blame those guys for hesitating. Also, they're in the pole position. The SEC is working from a position of leverage where they don't really have to do anything if they don't want to. So you see how long that took me? You lose people on that. They just want to hear, play 9 games, you're scared, or play 8 games, screw the rest of them. But there's a lot of subtlety to all that conversation.
And that, I think, is the problem, at least from a consumer standpoint. It's not a problem from the consumer standpoint. It's a problem that's been created for the consumer. Tell me why I should care about this, and then I'm going to give you all the reasons why I don't. Tell me who I'm playing in the fall of 2024, basically, at this point. So ultimately, I guess my larger question, though, is how is this being viewed by the coaches? Because what you've been doing the last couple of weeks, and certainly in this time of year where it's really great, where coaches seem to be the most relaxed so you can get the most out of them. The Pate State Speaker Series is what's been going on. You can check out the interviews on the YouTube channel, of course, in the podcast as well. Mario Cristobal, the Miami head coach, the latest in the Pate State Speaker Series. What are coaches saying about the landscape right now? Now, I know obviously we're talking about the SEC, And coaches in the SEC, I think, have made their thoughts known publicly. Kirby Smart thinks this is the most tired and overrated conversation to ever be had in college football. I assure you it's not. I just spent 10 minutes talking about college baseball to open my radio show. But I think that I'm fascinated to hear the kind of dynamics from the coaches that are going on when all of this is being discussed. What's being said in front of microphones is not necessarily the vibe that's being given off in the room when the doors are closed.
Yeah, here's what's weird about it. So guys like Saban forever called to play more conference games. Then all of a sudden, when the format came into focus, or the potential format, he all of a sudden became against it. And people called him a hypocrite. And again, it makes you sound like you're carrying the water for Saban when you talk like I'm about to talk. I got what he meant. Like, I understood forever that guys who have more of a Sunday mentality. Like, he didn't stay in the NFL. He's always had more of a Sunday mentality. He hates those FCS games. They can't stand them because it's so hard to get his team up, because it's so hard to convince people favored by 50 that this is a nameless, faceless opponent. So guys like him, he's not the only one. They've always wanted a tougher schedule. What they've wanted is across the board a tougher schedule. Well, all of a sudden that format leaks out. You're going to have a LSU, Auburn, and Tennessee every year. Those are going to be your three permanents. And he looked around and said, aren't there other ways we can do this? You're telling me I'm going to be stuck with those three every year? No, all of a sudden I'm not for that anymore. So what I think a lot of them that are talking to me are saying is that they'd love to jumble the actual selection process up, but they want to play more conference games. They're worried about the back end. They're not worried about the front end. They don't fear the competition, like Twitter would lead you to believe. What they fear is the imbalance in the selection process at the end of the road. They fear having gone toe-to-toe with, like I said, an LSU one week and a loaded A&M roster the next week and not getting the proper due for the strength of schedule they're playing in a world where you watch a bunch of people in suits on a committee gather around a table and they're looking at metrics that are like record-based, that are points per game based. Those metrics don't tell the story of the actual level of competition you played. It's not Xbox, in other words. So that's what a lot of them talk about behind the scenes in the SEC. Now, outside the SEC, there is a uniform stance against the SEC. I haven't had a single coach off the record tell me, I really feel for those guys in the SEC. That's not something that's come across my radar.
Shocking.
Yeah.
Josh Pate, Late Kick Live. Check out the YouTube channel. Subscribe to it. Check out the podcast, wherever it is that you get your podcast, at Late Kick Josh is where you can follow him on social media. Before we talk about your visit to Miami, it sounded like quite an excursion. It sounds like you had a bunch of different experiences down there. I want to ask you about this Netflix documentary that is being done on the 06 through 09 Florida teams. Because Urban Meyer was just recently interviewed, had said that Netflix had approached him. He had said no initially. But now he is officially going to be in the documentary.
I did not hear that until just now.
Yeah, that was it was done on a local morning show. Yesterday, I saw a quote from the big lead talking about Urban Meyer, which is, of course, somebody, along with Tim Tebow, Aaron Hernandez, not obviously available for interview at this point, but those primary actors for one of the time that I most associate college football greatness with in my lifetime. Like, the thing that got me first and foremost to pay attention to this sport was the phenomenon of those SEC games, of Florida, of Alabama in the early going, and basically the extinguishing of what was a shooting star by Nick Saban because they just ran into the wrong thing at the wrong time. What do you make? What are the biggest questions that you have around this being made?
Well, that was one of them. I did a whole segment on this like 2 weeks ago, and I always, in documentary world, I ask two questions. Number one, what's the creative direction? So basically, who had creative control? And number two, what's the participation? Who did you get to go on the record? And I thought if Urban Meyer was not on the record, if you didn't get sound from him in this documentary, it's not that it couldn't be good, but it was going to be incomplete. He's at the core. He is the nucleus of the 06 to 09 Florida Gators, obviously. I don't think if you're 20 years old, maybe, if you're a college-age person listening to this, I don't think you can appreciate what you just said fully. I lived through that too. I don't think college football's ever felt bigger to me than that run, that 5-year period, like 05 to 2010, because you had you had what you just said perfectly, a shooting star. You had a transcendent dynasty being formed in the SEC by a guy who wasn't from the SEC. People mocked him when they hired him from Utah. They thought he had a smoke and mirror offense, a gimmick offense, and it was going to be put in its place in the SEC. And instead, he redefined offensive football in the SEC. He went and won all the big recruiting battles. He took Tim Tebow from Alabama, even though Tebow was in the state of Florida. Tebow would have been a player for Mike Shula at Alabama had Urban Meyer not come along. Now think about how that changes history. And as you think about that for the next 3 hours, hit pause on your memory so I can finish this point. You have a monster built in Gainesville. And then Nick Saban comes to Alabama right in the middle of it, and it's like watching the Bulldozers come into Fern Gully. And it's like, wait, look at this thing. Someone's going to tear this down? And they did. They got one shot at him in 2008, and it was a classic SEC title game. And Bama leads going into the fourth quarter, and then Tim Tebow does what he does in the fourth quarter. Florida wins. And that entire 2009 season has never – I don't think we've had another season like this. So from the very beginning of it, it was built like a prize fight. The season was promoted like a pro wrestling pay-per-view coming up, where the matchup's already predetermined, even though it's not, even though they've each got to play 12 football games, 8 of them in conference, and there were close calls during that season. But sure enough, both of them get to Atlanta undefeated against undefeated, 1 versus 2. There is no college football playoff. So even though they're both spotless, we go into Atlanta that Saturday afternoon, and the loser's done. Winner moves on, loser goes to whatever the consolation prize was, the Sugar Bowl, where even they would go and destroy Cincinnati, as it turned out, or Louisville or whoever it was. So that Tim Tebow rise, they're going for greatest team of all time that year. They're going to repeat as national champ, and Nick Saban and Alabama take him down 32-13, I think was the final score. I'm there that afternoon. I borrowed so much of my mom and dad's money to get in the Georgia Dome.
This was a different version before the ascent of Late Kick.
It was amazing, though. And if you can get enough people on the record, I would also wonder how many non-Florida voices will they have? How many, like Lane Kiffin, people forget this. So Lane Kiffin comes into the SEC at Tennessee and just immediately starts throwing bombs at Urban Meyer.
Right.
And they challenged them in the 1 year that Lane was at Tennessee. Everybody, like Lane Kiffin's the ultimate heel, coming down the aisle, stepping in the ring. And even agnostic people looked and said, Urban Meyer, take care of him. And Florida beat him, but they didn't blow him out that year. In fact, Tennessee almost beat Alabama as well that year. And so I wonder how many of those voices will be on there. Did they get Nick Saban on the record in this thing? Did they get coaches from around the SEC? Steve Spurrier was in the SEC, I think, at that time, maybe. I wonder how many other voices they have. If they tell the story, if they peel the Band-Aid off and they go down the Aaron Hernandez road, if they talk about how many of those players were eventually incarcerated from some of those teams, if they don't beat around the bush and they just, they really dive deep into it, I think Pony Excess, the SMU doc, is the best doc that they've ever done on college football. If you do this one right, it could rival it.
I'm always curious, especially from the perspective of somebody like you who lives, sleeps, eats, breathes this stuff. Like Manti Te'o, the 2-part one that Netflix, this is a part of the Untold series that Netflix is doing. They've done a couple of other ones, but Untold with Manti is the thing that seems to have hit the biggest for them. This Florida one seems like it's got similar, if not greater juice, although the Manti Te'o story is just crazy. From a variety of different
because it could
angles.
attract someone who doesn't care about college football.
Right.
This one's the same way.
So I think from your standpoint, though, those are the people that I'm most curious to hear the feedback from, because, yes, there is an attraction outside the world of college football, but from the people who understood the stakes, the people that understood the principal characters in all this, not just the elements, the TMZ, the drama of it, that is, centered around a football-themed story. Like, those are the perspectives on these kind of things that I'm always most interested to hear, because, and we're starting to get into a phase, I think, where this is more visceral for me, because I remember, the moment when I looked down at my phone and was sent the Deadspin article about Manti Te'o.
Oh, yeah.
One of these times where it almost never happens anymore. Live Golf was just an example of this, where a story is completely unexpected and takes, you by almost complete surprise, where it's not being talked about until it very much is.
The only one in recent memory that was that big a bombshell was pretty much a year ago this week, and that was USC and UCLA to the Big Ten. No one knew it. I was in LA that day. I was in a hotel lobby. No one knew it. That doesn't happen anymore. It used to happen a lot. That doesn't happen anymore, and it's really underappreciated. And so you're right about that. But to go back to the whole Florida thing for a second, also think about the trajectory of Urban Meyer. Think about how different maybe his story is, because that '08 season, they beat Saban, they beat Oklahoma, they win the title. That '09 year, they go down to Alabama, and then they still win their bowl game. 2010, it falls off the rails. He's done. He's out of the SEC. He never comes back down here. That is a course correction in the history of SEC football and college football that you cannot overstate, because there's no telling what they would have done if the team doctor in Miami clears Drew Brees and Saban gets Brees and doesn't leave Miami. Urban Meyer could, I don't know how long he would have stayed at Florida. You never know how it would have played out. But there would have been no force of nature like Nick Saban in Alabama coming to stop him. I can assure you of that. He probably would have had to have it implode from within. And in some cases, it was well on its way to happening, as it turns out. Tebow leaves. Who knows what happens the following years. But, it could be such a good documentary. It's a series or documentary?
It's a documentary. It sounds like it's in two parts, the way that Te'o is. Based on the early reporting. I know that initially was leaked a couple of weeks ago, and you're just now starting to see more details on that. Josh Pate in studio here with us. Check out the Late Kick Live show on the Late Kick YouTube channel. You can also see him on CBS Sports HQ, the podcast available wherever you get your podcasts. So you brought up UCLA and USC, the news almost a year removed from that being made official. The question that I want to ask you, if you have time, coming up next,
yeah, we're good,
is what's the thing that's most different, actually, about the sport of college football since that news has come down? Because that is landscape-altering changes that have been discussed, but I want to talk about the actual differences that have been made in the year since. So we'll do that with Josh Pate coming up next. Josh Pate is hanging out here with us in studio. Welcome back to the show. Late Kick Live at Late Kick Josh is where you can follow him for all of his college football musings. The Saturday tweets almost there. How many more Saturdays to go?
Well, as of last Saturday, 12 more Saturdays to go.
That's much, much closer than I always feel like I say that every time I see that. It's really only 12, but not only 12.
You know, I've got that picture of me searching in the corn.
Yes.
But we all know we're building to the celebration in the corn tweet. And we only use that one when we get to the finish line or the start line.
It is one of the best slow burns in sports media right now. The Josh Pate weeks-long college football almost here teases. Speaking of where you can get your college football fix, as I mentioned, the Late Kick YouTube channel is a great resource for anybody, casual or diehard alike. Your speaker series that you're doing, the Pate State Speaker Series, say that 5 times fast. The latest trip down to Miami, the access that you had, I don't want to call it unprecedented, but it's certainly unprecedented, it feels like, in today's media environment.
Well, the Miami media called it unprecedented. So there's that.
Really, yeah, I imagine there are a lot of salty beat writers about all the access that you had to the facility, the coaches, and the players. But the conversation that you had with Mario Cristobal, the one-on-one, it's posted now. It's about an hour long. For people who want to go check it out, I would very, very much recommend that. Miami's in such a weird state at this point, especially coming off of how disappointing last year was. And I wonder what your read on that program is after having spent several days down there and talking with the necessary parties and all this. What is the University of Miami right now under Mario Cristobal?
Transitioning. It's something that is, not something it could be. I'm a big believer that not everything that hasn't been can't be. That's a Meemaw-ism, but I apply it to college football.
The Meemaw-isms, by the way, always work against me.
You want to see a good quality power rankings list. Look at the top 10 Meemaw-isms. And so we went down there, and I cannot overstate enough. They opened the door. We got to see anything we wanted to. We got to talk to anyone we wanted to. Brutal honesty, a lot of it off the record, but plenty of it, like a heaping helping of it on the record. And like I said, stuff that you haven't heard out of Mario Cristobal before. Ditto with James Franklin when we were at Penn State. I mean, we flat out got him to admit, I leverage job offers to get raises here. Well, everyone knows that, but no one's ever heard you say it. And so that was refreshing to hear. Well, with Mario Cristobal, you know, I think one of the biggest takeaways is they didn't hit on coordinator hires right out of the gate. They went and got Josh Gattis out of Michigan, fresh off a Broyles Award win. That's the top assistant in the country, for those unfamiliar. So he did that at Michigan.
And paid like it.
Yes, huge. Mario gets the job at Miami. One of his first hires is, I'm going to go get the top offensive mind in the country, or so he thought, and they go and get Josh Gattis. Oil and water. Talked to everyone down there. They didn't speak. No one spoke ill of Josh Gattis, the person. They all like him as a person. It's just the styles never fit. Tyler Van Dyke's the quarterback down there, and he was pretty honest, respectfully honest. We never had synergy. We never had cohesion. It didn't work. Mario Cristobal, though, he went about 5 steps further, and I kind of pressed him on it. Like, we knew watching from afar it wasn't working. Did you know? I mean, when did you know? How early did you know? And he's, pretty early on. So, okay, the next question is, if you're a head coach, what do? You can't just fire coordinators in week 3.
Yeah.
And he said, pretty much, yeah, you got to grin and bear it. And you've got to, at the same time, let them know this is not going to work out. You need to go ahead and start exploring other options. And, I'm a guy who always gives others time to try and find other places of employment. And he was really open about that entire process. I've not had coaches on the record talk like that with me, head coaches at least. So there was that. But then behind the scenes, they've got 2 new coordinators in there. These are not guys who are wholly proven on the national level. Lance Guidry is not a guy who's coordinated defenses at Georgia. Shannon Dawson is not a guy who came there by way of USC. But they are guys who, could be the next in a line of high-profile coordinators, or at least they hope so. But the biggest thing is the talent they're bringing in. They just brought in a really, really good recruiting class. And one of the things I got to do down there is I got to watch player workouts, which is closed to everybody. I mean, coaches aren't even supposed to be participating in that. So I'm standing there watching. They got if you want a little heads up on who to watch this year, they got a 5-star offensive tackle named Francis Mauigoa. Now, we made a big deal about him in the recruiting process, but even when we were making a big deal about him, I had some folks reaching out saying, hey, he's kind of above and beyond different than the other ones. And so I go down there and watch him. And he's, as a 17-year-old, I don't think he's turned 18 yet. He's about 6'6", 330. He's leading position group drills, just total alpha, total general in command of everything. Hasn't even strapped it up for a fall practice at Miami yet. And then they're just messing around afterwards. And they're running pass routes. So he's 6'6", 330.
Yeah.
And I could not put it into words good enough. You would just have had to have seen it. If you know, because you watch NFL guys up close all the time, it's not just the speed. It's the fluidity.
Yeah.
It's the elasticity in the joints. It's the ability to move your body like it's Jell-O. Okay, this guy has that, and he's running. He's adjusting his body because he's got another O-lineman throwing to him, so they're throwing behind him constantly.
Right.
The adjustment of the body control, the footwork. He goes over to the jugs machine, catches 41 in a row with one hand off the jugs machine at 60 mph. And so he's going to start at right tackle for him this fall.
Does that hurt you back there? He picked Miami over Tennessee. I remember this very, very clearly. Does this hurt you back there? You've been very, very quiet this entire 2 segments.
I may or may not have put in a special request for Josh to tamper and send Malagoa to Tennessee as a transfer, but
This
I don't
is
know
a
if
true
that's gonna
story.
work.
That's the only thing he
really?
said. He didn't say have a good trip. He didn't say have a safe flight. He said, could you tamper with Malagoa for me? And so I did, to no avail. But they've got players. They've got the freshman class, like a lot of them are going to play. And so my vibe was they feel better about this year. They feel great about 2 years from now. They feel great about the 2024 season. They just got to improve this year. Like win 8 games this year. Make a bowl. Like just show the right trajectory. But man, it's so obvious. This is not the first time this has happened, but when you're turning around a program, it's so obvious when the first freshman class comes in, because if you're doing it right, they look different than everyone. And at Miami, the freshmen just immediately stand out. I worked out with the team for the first day I was there.
Who gets to do that?
Exactly. I'm in there with the team working out, and the guys who turn your head are all true freshmen, and the head coach, because Mario can throw around some weight too.
Yeah.
And so like at every turn, you're realizing, okay, well that's a good sign, because that means they got true freshmen in the building that are difference makers. However, the difference makers are true freshmen. So we know what college football says about that normally. Miami does not have the easiest of schedules. Plus, they got A&M in week 2. But then again, that's also a chance to make a statement in week 2. So it was a very, very interesting trip and a very honest trip.
I have a lot more questions, but unfortunately, the constraints of daily talk radio are not going to let me continue to ask you follow-ups. So that just means that we're going to have to invite our friend Josh Pate back at some point whenever he has the time in his schedule, because I know you have a flight to catch later this afternoon.
You ought to get yourself a YouTube channel. That's what you ought to do.
Well, I exist there, and apparently the only thing it's used for is to take unpleasant screenshots of when I make bad faces on the camera.
Well, that's not fair, because that chat heavily contributes to the commerce in the greater Nashville area.
Yeah. If you want the YouTube channel that you should be checking out for all of your college football insights and analysis, because there is no off season, it is the Late Kick YouTube channel. Subscribe to it now. Check out the podcast wherever it is that you get your podcast, and make sure you're following at Late Kick Josh. Thanks, bud.
Farewell, sir.
What in sports made you say, oh no? We'll talk about it next.
It is 11:02. Good morning from the Superbook.com Sports Desk. I'm Lucas Panzica. College baseball, Tennessee is headed to Omaha. The Vols shut out Southern Miss with a 5-0 win in the Hattiesburg Super Regional late Monday night. Drew Beam had the win on the mound with 7 strikeouts in 6 innings pitched as Chase Burns closed it out with Zane Denton's 3-run blast in the 5th that made it a 4-0 game, and the Vols never looked back, punching the final ticket to the College World Series where they would take on LSU on Saturday night. NBA Finals, the Denver Nuggets are champions for the first time in franchise history, beating the Miami Heat 94-89 in Game 5 at home. Nikola Jokic with 28 points and 16 rebounds. He is the Finals MVP. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Second hour underway. Welcome in. If you're just now joining us, we're happy to have you. Appreciate Josh Pate hanging out with us for a good chunk of the first hour. Always value his insights and analysis. I never know necessarily. I have a general idea where those Pate conversations are going to go, and I always enjoy where they end up after the fact. 615-737-1045. You got questions about DeAndre Hopkins? I've got some answers for you. A successful visit by all accounts here in Nashville yesterday, concluding yesterday afternoon before he flew out and will now make his way at some point in the next 3 days, to the New England Patriots. We have some of the biggest headlines in the NFL outside of that having to do with another wide receiver who's not showing up at mandatory minicamp, and his coach is, quote-unquote, very concerned. Tell you where that is in the AFC here in just a little bit. But first and foremost, Lucas, we have something to do. We pushed it because Pate was here. We can do so no longer because we have giveaways, yes?
We do, because it is Dad's Week on 104.5 The Zone. And if you are, not caller 5, but if you give us the best oh no of the sports weekend, you have a chance to win 4 tickets to take Dad to see the Atlanta Braves host the Colorado Rockies on Father's Day this Sunday, plus a prize pack from Chattanooga Whiskey. It is Dad's Week, presented by Chattanooga Whiskey on 104.5 The Zone. This year, give Dad the best. Chattanooga Whiskey awarded Best Craft Producer of 2023 by Whiskey Magazine. For more info, you can visit 1045thezone.com/Dad's Week, 615-737-1045 for what made you say, oh no, this week.
So in order to do that, we need the music.
I don't have it.
Okay. At all?
It's not. I don't know what's going on with this computer.
What do you mean? Is it buffering?
Yeah, it's just not letting me pull it up. I don't know what to tell you.
There's nothing we can do to stop this from buffering? Do we need to call IT? I have tickets to give away. Damn it, somebody hit the music.
I got nothing for you, buddy.
You really can't do it?
No, I'm dead serious. This computer is not cooperating.
I thought you were screwing with me to try and cut me off.
I wish that's what I was doing.
Why?
Believe me, I would love for that to be the case.
Even when we try to do this well, we are undermined. It's a sign. 615-737-1045. That's actually hilarious. What in sports made you say, oh no?
Oh no!
Oh no!
Oh no!
Oh yeah! No. You're the worst. What in sports made you say, oh no? 615-737-1045 is the number. I'm going to start off, Lucas, whenever you are prepared. I'm going to need the audio for this one, because what happened to John Sterling, the voice of the Yankees, is the definition of oh no. Now, we all have our favorite teams. We all have our favorite voices that we most associate with our favorite teams, right? For Tennessee Titans fans, it's Mike Keith and Coach Dave McGinnis. For Yankees fans on the radio, it is John Sterling. He is in his 80s at this stage, John Sterling. He's 84, and he does the games. He's been doing the games for so many years at this point, and he's on the call this past Sunday where his worst fears are realized. It's the Yankees-Red Sox. They're in the ninth inning, and the Yankees go on to win. Right? You can almost hear the John Sterling Yankees win call in your head, I'm sure, if you're somebody who's a fan of baseball at all. But Justin Turner is going up against Clay Holmes. He fouls a pitch straight back. So the ball ricochets into the broadcast booth, and it hits the 84-year-old play-by-play broadcaster, John Sterling, in the head. It's okay to laugh at it because he is okay at this point, but the audio of it is actually laugh out loud hilarious. Go ahead and play it.
And now the 3-2 swung on, a pop foul back here. Ow! 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 It really hit me. I didn't know it was coming back that far. So once again, it'll be a 3-2. And Holmes ready to deal. A ground ball to third. Donaldson squares, throws to first in time. Ball game over. Yankees win. The Yankees win. You know, that foul ball actually hit me. It kind of glanced off my forehead. So I took one for the team.
Okay, John. My star of the game is Kyle Higashioka, who wants to know if you're all right. Are you okay? John?
Yes.
Okay, yes.
I am okay. Just a glancing blow.
Just a glancing blow.
Now
so that's John Sterling getting hit in the head with a foul ball, just the way that he says ow in his full-on broadcaster voice and keeps saying ow that way. That in sports made me say, oh no, this weekend. The 84-year-old play-by-play broadcaster of the Yankees getting hit in the dome with a foul ball. 615-737-1045 is how you nominate the thing that it made you say, oh no, in sports this week. Let's start with Spencer in Chattanooga up first. Hey, Spencer. What's up, buddy? Oh, I guess not. He dropped off. Didn't want to win it. Jason in Murfreesboro is up next.
Hey, guys.
What's up?
I don't know if I have the best one or not, but I just watching the game last night. The Heat had the game, and then the very ending, my oh no is Jimmy Butler just turning around and just throwing up a blank three-pointer when he had plenty more time to move around and pass the ball to get a better off shot. That's my oh no for the week.
Yeah, no, it's a good one, Jason. Thank you for the call. The Miami Heat lose 4-1 in the NBA Finals last night, go down in Denver, and Denver obviously goes on to win. Jimmy Butler really, really struggled and just kind of seemed out of it until the fourth quarter. I know Jeff Van Gundy on the broadcast was disgusted with the way that the Heat settled for a three-point shot instead of driving the lane, taking the two and try and extend the game if possible. But to see that kind of peter out for the Miami Heat, it was still contentious. And to their credit, man, you know, if you're a Miami Heat fan, I know there are no moral victories, but you got to feel really, really good about the level of fight that team showed, even if they only won one game in that NBA Finals series. Let's go to Carter, calling us from BGKY, Bowling Green, Kentucky. What's up, Carter?
What's going on, guys?
What you got?
My oh no moment of the week was there is a video circulating the internet. It is Yankees broadcaster John Sterling, who is 84 years old, gets beamed in the face with a foul ball in the broadcast booth. Takes it square on the cheek, backs up for a second, and the 84-year-old man getting hit in the face with a baseball is an oh no for me, but to his credit, he hesitated for about 2 seconds and then kept calling the game.
It's pretty good. Can I hear that again, Lucas? Do you have that handy? As a matter of fact, given that it was my oh no submission and Carter's just blatantly tried to steal mine to win the prize pack, that's fine.
Plagiarism.
3-2 swung on, a pop foul back here. Ow! 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 It really hit me. I didn't know it was coming back that far. So once again, it'll be a 3-2. And Holmes ready to deal. A ground ball to third. Donaldson squares, throws to first in time. Ball game over. Yankees win.
Yes, so that's the John Sterling call. It was my oh no. I'm sorry, Carter, you can't have mine. Let's see if Jacob in Burns has anything. What's up, Jacob?
Hey, Buck. Hey, Lucas. So my oh no, forgive me because I don't know the actual teams that were playing, but I saw over the weekend that there was a soccer match. And before it ended, there was fireworks that were lit off, I think, by the stadium and by the fans.
No.
So, players are still playing and matches still going on, and there's just fireworks going off. Definitely no from a safety standpoint, and just like, how does that happen?
Lucas, you have details?
Okay, this was amazing. And I can't believe that you haven't seen it, given how much time you spend with your eyes glued to your phone, because this was all over the place over the weekend.
12 hours, according to my screen time report on Sunday.
Oh, my God. That's insane.
That's down 14%.
I digress. Second division play in Argentina. So just a second division match, not even the top league in the country. And at some point in stoppage time, the game's still going on. It's end-to-end action. Somebody's trying to find a winner. I can't remember what the score was. It doesn't matter. There's pyro at sporting events, right? You go to a Nashville SC game at Geodis Park, and a couple fireworks pop off behind the goals when they score.
Not at NFL games anymore after the Tennessee Titans, baby. No pyros allowed.
But
that's still one of the highlights. That's still one of the highlights of my professional NFL reporter career, is watching the Tennessee Titans blow the moment when they're honoring Eddie George and Steve McNair, retiring their jerseys by lighting the field on fire.
So what's the detail there? Like, are they not allowed to do pyro anymore?
Yeah, teams are not allowed to have pregame pyrotechnics on the field anymore because the Titans' pregame pyrotechnics caught on fire.
That can't be that. Is that why?
Yes.
That's why.
Yes.
That is hilarious.
I know. That's my answer.
Anyway, it's stoppage time of this game, and some fireworks start to pop off behind the goals, like somebody, hit the button too early, like they thought the game was over. And the next thing you know, there are fireworks coming from every angle where it's behind the goals. It's lined along both sidelines. So there are just fireworks popping off from all around the field, and it looks like a war zone. You can't even see the field. They're still playing. They're trying to desperately score. Both teams are going end to end, and the smoky haze that hangs over the field, like the fans in the stands, there's no way that they could see it. I'm going to send this to you. It is absolutely hilarious.
Please do. All right. It sounds like that's the leader in the clubhouse. It sounds like it might have even earned the TikTok music for the thing that made you say.
Who was it that had that one?
Jacob and Burns.
Jacob had the soccer game. Okay.
I never remember that, and I'm glad that I did, because Jacob should be the leader in the clubhouse. We can take a few more phone calls on what in sports made you say, oh no. We have some callers who are wanting some questions about, did you just turn off my microphone?
Yeah.
What are you doing?
I'm just back here pushing buttons. What do you do?
What is it that you say that you do here? Hit the button to go to break. Welcome back to the show. So we are in the midst of Oh No. What in sports made you say Oh No this weekend? 615-737-1045. We got DeAndre Hopkins details. We'll get to those momentarily too. But in the meantime, Lucas and I are going to, is it just you and me at this point? Going to Bonnaroo on Sunday?
Megan.
Megan's fun.
Yeah.
I haven't seen Megan in a
It'll
while.
be third wheeling with Megan and I.
That's okay. I can manage that. But Bert is has been telling us, has been gaslighting us that he's going to Bonnaroo with us on Sunday.
Yeah, I'm going to buy my ticket.
Bert, yeah. Well, no, he's been trying to pawn it off on his sugar mama situation and make sure that Cheyenne.
Yeah, we're going to buy them.
Lovely and adoring girlfriend. Yeah, we're going to buy them. Okay, Bert, buy them.
It's this weekend.
We haven't heard from him.
Yeah, he did text me this morning, so I can't confirm he's alive.
Oh, that's disappointing. I want some kind of content out of him going to Vegas, but I don't necessarily want him back. But if he doesn't go to Bonnaroo with us after gaslighting us for the better part of 2 weeks now, saying that he was going to buy his ticket, he's going to buy his ticket. You've got me. I'm not camping out. You were never going to get me to camp. But you've got me going to Manchester, Tennessee. Obviously, it's going to be an electric performance. All the acts scheduled for Sunday are great. I've never done Bonnaroo personally, so I'm looking forward to my first experience out there on a farm. But I want to know, there should be some kind of repercussion for Bert because he can't just tell us that he's going to do things and not do them. And I haven't decided on what I want that to be. Or if that's even within my jurisdiction, or if I'm going to get an email from PR saying I can't do, or HR.
We will confront and mob him tomorrow.
I don't want to mob him. He already spends too much of his time in my bubble anyway, trying to jump scare me after a week long in Vegas. I'm going to smell him coming. It's going to smell like cigarettes and booze and regret. 615-737-1045 is how you tell us what in sports made you say, oh no, this weekend. This is a funny comment in the YouTube chat. I'm doing my best Lucas impression now. I'm focusing too much on one comment. Jael says, being a Titans media guy has made Buck soft. Talking about the Miami Heat played tough and moral victories. Guess that's what you get, I think is what he's trying to say. Being a Titans sports media person. What do you think that means?
I mean, I just assume he's calling Titans media soft. Context clues?
I get that. But within the context of, like, would we not all agree that the Miami Heat played well despite losing in the NBA Finals 4-1? That competitiveness does matter, even if it didn't culminate in a championship, because it didn't culminate in a championship for 29 of the 30 NBA teams. I think that you can still praise the performance while acknowledging, the season was a failure because they didn't win the title, as it is for the other 29 teams who did not win the title. The idea that that you view the Titans through that certain kind of prism. I view every NFL team that doesn't win the championship through that prism. If they played well, as the Eagles did, for example, are you looking around and saying that the Eagles, bashing the Eagles for coming up short in the biggest spot? Maybe they are in Philadelphia. I haven't been there for that portion of the conversation. And certainly I don't think there was anybody who was taking it easy on the Titans after they were. I was talking about it this morning with a couple of Titans fans who are still stunned that they watched a football team lose 7 straight games last year. Me too. But like the idea that you can't acknowledge toughness and performance, even if it didn't result in the ultimate goal, while still trying to compete, there's no question in my mind that the Miami Heat played that game to the very end. They weren't good enough to win. That happens all the time in sports. The idea that it has to be that definitive and that you can't apply that kind of logic to sports that way because it's just going to be the end-all be-all Michael Jordan has more rings than LeBron James, suck it type of sports conversation. Those things are so boring to me.
I also struggle with the blanket statement of if you don't win a championship, the season was a failure.
Oh, I don't. I mean, I think that's pretty definitive.
Was TCU's season a failure last year?
Yeah, they got blown out in the championship game.
It was a failure. A team that was 5-7 the year before and went all the way to the college football playoff, defying all odds along the way and losing to the most talented team in the country. Yeah, it was a failure of a season.
The ultimate goal of winning a championship. Yes, they did fail on that most important point. Yes.
No, that's crazy. That's absolutely crazy. Was Tennessee's season a failure? 11 wins for the first time in 20 years? Yes, Tennessee wants to get back to winning championships, but last year with the expectations going in, that was a failure?
Yeah, they choked against South Carolina. They blew their chances being the top team, and they didn't make the college football playoff. That's a failure.
That in and of itself, yes.
Okay.
When you zoom into the South Carolina game, absolutely. But big picture, no, that's crazy talk. that's insane.
Now, here's what I'll grant you. College football is different. Because not every program in college football has the opportunity, truly and honestly, to win a championship. I will grant you that college football is different that way.
Like you would look Sonny Dykes, TCU head coach, in the eye and say, "Oh, your season was a failure last year."
On the point of winning a championship, yes. That's not any kind of, now maybe failure is a harsh term, but yes, they did not achieve the goal that they set out to do, which was to win the championship. It's why the reaction. You remember the comments around Giannis? The comments around Giannis kind of, he was asked specifically if he thought his season was a failure. And he gave, by the way, I thought a very reasonable and nuanced answer on why he did not believe it to be a failure, but a culmination. Now, Giannis has the benefit of winning a championship. Giannis has won before. So it gives him, I think that Giannis does deserve a little bit more credibility in explaining the process of why it's culminating, why those failures matter in the process of what it is to achieve the ultimate goal. I do understand where he's coming from at that point, but don't tell me that to not win the championship in that moment is not a failure. Though that point I'm willing to go along with. In professional sports, and I'm keeping it more to professional sports than I am to college because of how muddled the waters in college are, but it is a failure to set out to win a championship and to not achieve that goal.
Sure. But that's all I'm saying. How many teams going into this NFL season are going to have the realistic goal of winning a Super Bowl?
Teams or fan bases?
Teams.
I'd probably say there's...
Is anybody in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers building, nobody's going to say it out loud.
Oh, no. I'm saying I'll give you 10 of 32. I'll give you a third of the league, less than a third of the league. They're probably looking around and saying, but here's the thing. This is not... And this, I think, is the way that it should be put in front of fans, because there's one way that media and fans look at this stuff, and there's another way that coaches do. The way that coaches are looking at this, at least in the NFL, the way that coaches are looking at this in the NFL, can I put together a roster that's going to get me to the playoffs? If I can get to the playoffs, then it's let go and let God to a degree. Like you can bash Ryan Tannehill for choking in playoffs. You can say that Lamar Jackson has come up short in the postseason. You can hang Phillip Rivers with that as well. There's all kinds of examples. But the way that football coaches and football staffs look at this, can I construct the roster that gets me a postseason spot? Once I get in the tournament, then, I'm banking on a lot more luck than at any other point in the season. But that's the way that football teams look at this. Not that the end-all, be-all of winning the championship, because they're realistic. And it's fair to have that kind of realism.
There should be context.
Yes, they're absolutely.
Like, if the New York Jets don't even reach an AFC championship,
failure.
Right, with Aaron Rodgers, failure, 100%. That's why he's there. If the Tampa Bay Bucks don't win the NFC, that's a failure. No way. That's insane. There's no expectation.
The ultimate goal of a football franchise, they are going to publicly say, our goal, year in and year out, is to compete for championships. If you are going to utter that phrase, even if you put it out there just as a means of saying it, because you can't tell your roster that you're not going to be competitive, then by definition, you falling short of a championship is a failure. And I don't want to say that failure's okay, because on that note, it's not. But I think that the word failure is tossed around as too much of a there's too much of a harsh connotation that comes with failure. Yes, failure is bad. You don't want to fail. But there are plenty of us in our lives who have experienced some form of failure that has ultimately gone on to benefit us in some form or fashion, whether that's securing a better draft pick, whether that's learning a valuable lesson, whether that's how to deal with injury throughout the course of a season so you better understand how to manage it, whether it's you heard what Pate was in here talking about with Mario Cristobal and Josh Gaddis, where the coaching staff looked around very early on and said, oh, Josh Gaddis, how much? Josh Gaddis got over $1 million to go be the offensive coordinator of Miami. They paid him big bucks. He was the offensive coordinator of the year in college football. And they knew very early on, by the head coach's own admission to Josh Pate, that, it's not, this thing isn't working the way that we envisioned. That ultimately will lead to a failure. I'm sure Mario Cristobal learned something from that. So while I do consider it to be, yes, by the literal definition, a failure, that does not mean that there can't be value in the failure. And that, I think, is where people who would argue against there being value in failure miss the larger understanding of what it is that happens in competitive sports and the way that competitive sports franchises, more importantly, coaches and players, view this thing.
Tyler on the F&M Bank chat says this segment is a failure.
That's probably true.
Speaking of failure, my oh no of the sports weekend happened last night.
Oh.
With Texas losing to Stanford.
Oh, my God.
In the Stanford Super Regional, fighting for a spot in Omaha. Game tied up at 6, bottom of the 9th, 2 outs, 1-1 count. Stanford up to the plate. I don't know the player's name, but with runners on first and second, he bloops a little pop fly up to center field. Should be a routine play. Send it to extra innings. We'll play the audio from the ESPN broadcast.
1-1 to Bowser. Bowser skies this one, and they don't spot it. Kennedy looking for it, and it drops. Stanford wins and is going to Omaha. Wow.
That ball skies straight up in the air. The two Texas outfielders running towards the general vicinity of where it might land completely lose it and then are just looking at each other, arms out, shrugging, dumbfounded as the ball just drops right in front of them. And Stanford walks it off and goes to the College World Series.
It's so bad. I mean, Texas fans have experienced some brutal ways to lose games, regardless of sports. And I know football is particularly poignant, but, like, baseball matters a great deal to them. And to have that ripped away that way, I can't. Mike Herndon was in studio with us yesterday. I can't imagine what Mike was like watching that game last night.
Yeah, and Mike, I remember talking to Mike when we were walking up to the studio yesterday. He was telling me he didn't really have the confidence, didn't think Texas had the arms yesterday. But to get all the way to that point, bottom of the 9th, and lose in that fashion, it reminded me, it's obviously not as bad, but it reminded me of Arkansas. Do you remember in the College World Series a few years ago? Arkansas, I believe they were playing Oregon State. Arkansas down to all they needed was 1 out to win the national championship, and a little pop fly got just popped up to the left field line, foul ball, and just a routine play for an Arkansas infielder to come over and make, and like 3 guys came over and nobody called it, and the ball just kind of landed in between all 3 of them, and Oregon State went on to win. You don't remember this? That was a disaster. That's what that reminded me of yesterday.
615-737-1045 is the number. Jerry Lowry says on the F&M Bank chat, everyone else talking about success of Tennessee athletics today. Buck with the rant of failure of UT football. Not so much. I mean, in my defense, I came in here ready to talk about how great Tennessee athletics has been of late. We had a schedule built into the rundown at 11:20 today. We've obviously missed our mark. Will baseball win Tennessee's first major sports title since 1998? I was prepared. I was ready. And instead, I turned it into a conversation about failure.
I think if Tennessee does not win a championship this year, it could be considered failure.
Baseball?
In Omaha, sure. But if Oral Roberts doesn't win the national championship, is that a failure?
If you get into the postseason.
If FAU, after getting to the Final Four, making an insane run, doesn't win the entire NCAA tournament, that's just a failure? Chalk their season up to a failure?
Again,
fire the coach?
You keep coming back to college sports, and I've granted you the exception that the water is more muddled in college sports than it is anywhere else. But the examples that you've just cited to me, yes. If you make the Final Four of a field of 64, my expectation for you should be championship or failure. I don't care who you are. What do you mean? What do you mean?
Sorry. No,
if you get into the postseason in your sport.
A 15 seed makes a crazy run to the Final Four and doesn't win a national championship. They're welcomed home as heroes, not as failure.
Well, that's on them. Participation trophies.
They're a big tough guy. No, it's a failure. You didn't win everything.
Yeah, that's right.
You only won most of the things.
You know what I would do for Indiana to get into the Final Four?
That's what I'm saying. Well, if Indiana gets to the Final Four, doesn't win it all, yes, it's a failure.
Yes,
but
it is.
FAU.
No, but why? Wait, no, why? Indiana hadn't mattered. Like, that's a great question. You're using name Just because FAU hasn't been there. I mean, I know there are things like this in college basketball year in and year out where it's just a shooting star across the sky. It's UMBC upsetting Virginia. It's Dunk City a couple of years ago making the run that Florida Gulf Coast did. Like, these things exist, and I understand your larger point. But if you have had such a luck of success and your skill set has allowed you to maintain this, that you make it into the Final Four of competition, then yes, my expectation should be for you at this point. Instead of, oh, look how cute. Look at the little, aren't they the owls? The mighty owls? Look at the cute little owls. What are they doing here in the Final Four? No, bleep that. Go win.
I'm sure they would have loved to win.
Yeah, and they didn't. Fail.
I'm sure they came home to booze to their fan base. You are failures.
No, you know what they came home to? They came home to silence because it's South Florida and they don't care about the FAU Owls in the Final Four. Get the bleep out of here. Okay,
you're alienating the FAU portion of our fans.
A hero's welcome. I would love for you to have seen what that actually looked like for FAU to come home. How much more sad that would have made you, where you would have expected a hero's welcome, and instead it's like, good job. Here are your T-shirts.
I'm sure they got home and they had a welcome to their fans throwing tomatoes at them. You scrubs! You couldn't even win a national championship as FAU. Get out of here.
Yeah. 615-737-1045. Let's talk about DeAndre Hopkins next. So I wouldn't have guessed that on the day after DeAndre Hopkins makes a successful, reportedly, by all accounts, visit to Nashville to take interest in the Tennessee Titans who are showing interest in him, wouldn't have had an hour and 45 minutes into the show before we started talking about it. We got distracted today. Phil in Gallatin has been waiting patiently to talk about said visit. Hey, Phil.
Hey, what's going on, Buck? Happy Miller Lite to you today.
As always.
Just wanted to call in real quick. Do you think Hopkins should get the same amount of money as Odell Beckham? And then I also wanted to go off subject a little bit. What do you think about this Jerry Springer situation with Michael Jordan's son and messing around with Scottie Pippen's wife? And then know your thoughts on that. Y'all have a good day.
Okay. we haven't talked about what was the genesis for us talking about Larsa Pippen and Michael Jordan's son the other day?
It was Scottie Pippen on some
that's right.
radio interview saying that Jordan was a horrible player before Scottie and the rest of that Bulls squad got there in the 90s.
So I'll address that one first. I'm sure it's deeply unpleasant for Scottie Pippen. I'm sure it's deeply unpleasant for Scottie Pippen Jr. I also think it probably delights Michael Jordan, recklessly speculating. Anyway, is Hopkins worth the same amount of money as Odell Beckham Jr.? Well, I think he's worth more. Whether he gets more or not is an entirely different subject. I have been talking to a couple of people in the league about this. We played for you the Mike Giannitti audio yesterday of him saying 2 years, 20 with 10 guaranteed. That seems to be the most that anybody's willing to forecast on this, given that teams are under no real great urgency to spend more than that at this time of the year. Mike Giannitti was the clip that we played for you yesterday. He said that in the last 6 NFL off seasons, no guaranteed money has exceeded $9 million that's been handed out to a player by a team. Teams just don't spend. Now, again, this is a unique situation. DeAndre Hopkins is a bit of a unicorn. This caliber of free agent does not typically exist or is available to be openly bid on in June. But from June 1st to September 1st, in the last 6 off seasons, no NFL player has exceeded $9 million guaranteed on a contract agreed to in that window. So DeAndre Hopkins, if he were to make 10, for example, would set a new precedent in the last 6 seasons.
Which will happen at some point.
I would think so. The money is too much. But again, this circumstance has to be created in another, and I'm sure that will arise, but who's to say that will happen in the next 2 years, right? Who's to say that will happen in the next 5 years? It's been 6 years, apparently, since anything like that's ever even been started or even been looked at.
Sooner than later.
Yes.
Money goes up, not down.
Agreed. But I do think that the DeAndre Hopkins circumstance here, if I told you that you could have DeAndre Hopkins for basically $10 million a year, would you not be foaming at the mouth to get that deal done?
Yes.
Yes. People are rabid. And now it's being posed to me. In fact, I got a text from somebody very, very credible in the NFL not 20 minutes ago.
Who was it?
Is he worth 10?
Just going to ignore my question?
Yes.
Who was it?
No.
Then how can we believe you?
Well, you just have to take my word for it. I mean, what if I was dumb enough to hold my phone up to the camera? See? I'm surprised that hasn't happened to me one day, because I do tend to Ron Burgundy these things. It's entirely possible that I betray deeply a confidence at some point in the near future. But, quote, I think they have a shot of getting him, talking about the Titans, but he will cost. Pats would shock me. Is he worth 10? Yeah, yes. Here, yes. He's worth $10 million. Yes. Yes, a million times over, yes. The question is he going to be okay with 10? I don't know what his self-realization situation is going to look like when he comes to that fact, and when his representation is looking around and be like, all right, DeAndre, the best offer we have, 2 years, 20, 10 guaranteed. What do you think, big guy? He's going to look around and say, wasn't I scheduled to make something like $30 million with Arizona? What happened? It's just kind of a product of the timing. And I think the biggest unknown in this is, how realistic is DeAndre Hopkins? I don't know the answer to that question. I don't know him like that. I don't I haven't seen him really talked about that way, other than money continues to be the theme that's brought up as most important.
I'm starting to wonder if he wanted to be released by Arizona.
I wouldn't think so. Arizona is by far, I mean, of all the locations, would you pick Nashville? Nashville's not a bad landing spot by any stretch of the imagination. But Nashville, let's say, Foxborough or somewhere around Foxborough, or Arizona / Phoenix or Scottsdale, where the training facility is where? Tempe? So somewhere around Tempe, Arizona. You're probably going to pick Arizona. You're going to make a hell of a lot more money if you stay under contract in Arizona. And there's no real expectations on you one way or the other because Kyler Murray's not going to play until, at this point, halfway through the season is reasonable to think for Kyler off an ACL tear, a very late ACL tear. It was week later. 17 or 16?
Extremely late in the season. I'd be surprised if he shows up by week 8 or 9.
So I would think that had all things been equal and Hopkins gotten to choose the scenario that played out for him, I think he would, well, again, I can't tell you that I don't know this person and then pretend to speak for him. So I don't know what DeAndre Hopkins would have preferred. But I would say, had all things been equal and the money in Arizona being the most that he stood to make potentially this year, I imagine that he would have preferred to stay in Arizona and just kind of ride it out. Because if you're going to tell me competitiveness, literally every indication is that does not seem to matter nearly as much as people want to give it credit for, which, by the way, we'll address because Rich Eisen of the NFL Network had some very, very strong thoughts on why DeAndre Hopkins should not sign with the Tennessee Titans. We'll play that for you in a little bit. Chauncey in Franklin is next. Hey, Chauncey.
Hey, guys. How you doing?
Good.
Hey, I want to, first, before I get to my oh no of the weekend, want to disagree with you. Failure and unsuccessful are two different things. TCU didn't win their conference. Max Duggan didn't win the Heisman, and they didn't win the national championship. But none of that was failure. It just wasn't as successful as their hopes had got to the highest heights.
I understand what you're saying. I just think we're going to fundamentally disagree on that, and that's fine.
All right. My oh no of the sports weekend is the melee after the Floyd Mayweather-John Gotti III exhibition.
What?
And the reason I want to say oh no is because those who don't know, John Gotti III is the grandson of the John Gotti. And in that melee, although John Gotti III was wrong, dead wrong for what he did, any of those guys that had gotten into the ring to protect Floyd during that melee, all I was thinking was, oh no, what if they touch the Teflon Don's grandson and things go wrong? Things could go horribly wrong for them. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for the call. I know his point was about John Gotti III. I had no idea that Floyd Mayweather was still fighting.
Yeah, me neither.
I'm looking at a CNN headline right now. Floyd Mayweather's exhibition fight against John Gotti III ends in mass brawl. Wow. I guess if Floyd Mayweather has proven anything, is that people will pay money to watch people hate him more than any other human being, it seems, in human history. But wow. The visuals on this are insane. Have you seen this?
No.
So it's at FLA Live Arena. It's a YouTube. No, I'm sorry. There's a variety of different details on this. All right, I don't have all the details available to me, but apparently a mass brawl at a Floyd Mayweather fight that I did not know existed is still happening, and he's going against the grandson of the infamous crime boss, John Gotti. So whatever you got to do to stay relevant and make money, Floyd, well done by you. 615-737-1045. That's the number. We'll get into the biggest unknowns of the NFL offseason that include DeAndre Hopkins and some strong statements from a very prominent NFL media member on why DeAndre should not join the Tennessee Titans.
It is 12 o'clock. Good afternoon from the Superbook.com Sports Desk. I'm Lucas Panzica. College baseball, Tennessee is headed to Omaha as the Vols shut out Southern Miss with a 5-0 win in the Hattiesburg Super Regional on Monday night, stamping the final ticket to the College World Series, where they will take on LSU on Saturday night. Around the NFL, mandatory minicamp happening this week in Buffalo, and Bills head coach Sean McDermott, speaking with Buffalo media earlier today, said wide receiver Stefon Diggs is not in attendance for minicamp. McDermott saying he is, quote, very concerned. In the National Hockey League, the New York Rangers will hire former Predators head coach Peter Laviolette as the 37th head coach in franchise history. Laviolette was most recently the head coach of the Washington Capitals. Stanley Cup final tonight. Vegas Golden Knights looking to close it out at home. They have a 3-1 series lead over the Florida Panthers. Puck drop is at 7 p.m. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once, and your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Third hour underway. Welcome in. Thanks for hanging out with us. Spend a little bit of your afternoon. Hope you're enjoying yourself. If you're just jumping in the car on your lunch break, 615-737-1045 is how you join the discussion. Lucas and I here with you until 1 o'clock before we turn things over to Blaine and Mickey. So DeAndre Hopkins still out there waiting in the wings, concluding a visit with the Tennessee Titans yesterday, on to New England, quite literally. Bill Belichick deciding or saying at his press conference yesterday that he wasn't a travel agent, so he was unaware of the logistics on Hopkins' arrival in New England. But according to multiple reports, the expectation is that he will still take a visit there. It is also being reported that there are other teams who are very much interested in the services of DeAndre Hopkins, but that have not necessarily been doing or scheduled at this point free agent visits. Should that change, we will, of course, keep you updated with the latest. But the biggest unknowns of the NFL offseason right now, Hopkins is a number one, right? That's the biggest story in professional football.
Yeah, not just here, right? Across the league.
He's the biggest name. He's available. He can join, theoretically, any team other than Arizona. It is the most wide-ranging subject out there of any NFL headline. But what's second place right now? You see the Saquon Barkley stuff? He's talking about holding out, like not participating in this coming season. He still hasn't signed his franchise tag. He was speaking to media, though, at some point in the last week, and he was kind of explaining his position on why it is, basically explaining the position, the plight of the running back, and how their salary has been capped in a way that other positions haven't been. Now, you would say, well, tough bleep. You're a running back. This is what you've chosen to do. You understand the implications of that. But, I mean, Saquon Barkley is not that far removed from being the third overall pick in an NFL draft. So that's happened. That's happened basically in the career of Saquon Barkley, that the running back has been so quickly diminished that this is the place where they're fine. This is the place that they find themselves in, where they're looking around and saying, but what if I want to make more than $10 million? Everybody else can. Why can't I? Well, because you're a running back and you're expendable. And we don't really care about you. You should be lucky that we're even giving you the franchise tag at 10 plus. So now he's voiced his concerns about this. I don't know how much that impacts what Brian Daboll is going to want to do. Because what we have found is that, accurately, running backs are quite disposable. Derrick Henry has even been replaceable here in Tennessee with Deontay Foreman. This is not something that's an opinion. It's something that we've quantifiably seen with our own eyes. So now as you look around at all the different elements of this, I think what's happening in New York is worth keeping an eye on, not just the Jets, but the Giants. Because the Giants are coming into this season with actual expectations. Brian Daboll win Coach of the Year? Yes. He won Coach of the Year at the NFL Honors Award. So Brian Daboll is going to be looked at in a certain type of way. Daniel Jones, with a new contract, going to be looked at in a certain type of way. It's not completely predicated on their ability to run the football, but it certainly helps to have an explosive playmaker like Saquon Barkley in your backfield.
He was a huge part of their success last year.
Massive.
So you understand where he's coming from.
Oh, totally. No, even as I am a don't pay the running back advocate, like even though I've never been more wrong in my life than Derrick Henry, I'd still, if you presented me, had the circumstances been the same, and the player's just not named Derrick Henry, if you present me with the same situation, I'm still going to make an argument against paying the running back. I just don't think it's a good use of resources in today's NFL. It doesn't mean I don't think it's unbelievably unfair for them, but it's kind of like the evolution of the big man in the NBA, right? Where, I mean, how far are we removed from Roy Hibbert being thought of as one of the most unstoppable players in the NBA? I mean, it's not that long ago. I mean, I was probably in college, so it's almost 10 years, but still.
Yeah, but look at what we're seeing now.
In terms of?
Jokic.
Yes. Now, there's evolution there that's made those. But, I mean, Jokic, Durant, like there are examples of this. DeAndre Ayton is not Jokic, right? He's a big man. He's skilled. He's more skilled than, for example, Roy Hibbert. But like the center in the NBA is not as valuable. Now, you can find guys who can. Jokic is a point center, right? Durant's a point forward. But these guys are they're less defined by their positions in the NBA. It's made that market a little more difficult. If you're, for example, Zach Edey. Zach Edey's going back to college basketball this year. Not in any other year, in the last maybe, prior to the last 5 years, basically prior to Golden State, would Zach Edey not be thought of as a first-round pick as a National Player of the Year?
I think you can have the same conversation around Oscar Tshiebwe.
Yes. So this exists in other sports. It's just running back at the NFL, it's obviously magnified. So while I completely understand Saquon Barkley's point, I'm not going to argue that he's not got the winning argument. Saquon Barkley loses this argument, whether he thinks that's fair or not. Derrick Henry, Christian McCaffrey, Ezekiel Elliott. Look at the pileup of free agent running backs that are just out there chilling, who we associate with some level of ability. Fournette may not be, the best running back in football. Zeke may not be the best running back in football. Dalvin Cook may not be the best running back in football. But you can find ways to use them, and they're just all out there chilling.
So is Saquon a bigger question mark right now, a bigger story than Dalvin Cook, where he lands?
I would say yes, because Saquon Barkley he's not under contract. He's messaging like he's comfortable not playing football. The last time we saw anything like this was Lev Bell, and that famously did not work out. He ended up taking less money from the Jets than he wanted from the Steelers. Hell, I think he took less money from the Jets than he was offered by the Steelers initially.
Reports, by the way, that Cook wants about $10 million per year from his new team.
Yeah, you're nuts.
Which is what we're talking about for DeAndre Hopkins.
Think about that.
Cook, 27, will be 28 in early August.
They don't matter the way that they think they should. And I understand that. That's the case for a lot of different jobs, right? Like, just to use a personal example, I don't matter the way that I think I should. You could put a great many things in this time slot. It would probably do pretty well. You know why? The Titans and the Vols, both rights exist on 104.5 The Zone. While I do have a very, very high opinion of myself, I am not so foolish as to think that I am bigger than the platform that I have access to, right? That's kind of the same situation that running backs are looking around and saying, professional athlete, person who's at the height of confidence, I know I'm great. I've been great my entire life. Did you see me at Penn State? I was the 3rd overall pick in the draft. Bleep yourself. Did you see me last year? I can do that again. And the argument by any, sensible NFL franchise would be to look around and say, even if they weren't penny pinching, to look around and say, yeah, but we can find some other dude to do that too. What we're seeing in the NFL right now is, what it means for the running backs, and if they're just going to have to figure out some kind of less restrictive pay structure than the franchise tag, where it just pigeonholes these dudes by position, where Jimmy Graham is arguing to be a wide receiver instead of a tight end, where, the price tag for an inside linebacker is the same price tag on the tag as it is for an outside linebacker, which is nonsense. There's problems with the structure of this stuff that's exacerbating the issues that running backs are having. But he's not attending mandatory minicamp. He's yet to sign that $10.1 million franchise tag. And what the NFL is going to look around, because what if the Giants were to say, all right, fine, we'll go get, I don't think this would be a good idea, but in theory, they could go say, yeah, okay, we'll go sign Zeke, and we'll take some other rookie running back or some other free agent that we think can be a third down threat. We'll figure out a way to manufacture an offense around this. If Brian Daboll is, in fact, the coach of the year, then one would think that they'd be capable of doing that. You see what else just popped up? That might be as big as either of these.
Yeah, I was about to say, there's maybe a new unknown.
Stefon Diggs is not at Bill's mandatory minicamp. And it's not being met with kind of, they're under contract, we expect them to be there. Did you see the quote from McDermott?
Yes.
Quote, very concerned that he's not there. You know why he's very concerned? Because they don't have another wide receiver, really. The Bills' wide receiver situation is not ideal. Now, they got the 2 tight ends this year, and I think that will make a big difference in the same way that we're talking about the Titans may have a little better situation than people are giving them credit for their tight end usage. But I think that the situation here for Saquon Barkley, I don't see a situation that ends up with him being happy about this at the end. Now, Diggs, I don't know what Diggs' contract situation is or what's he trying to leverage? Do we know anything about why Stefon Diggs might be unhappy?
Well, have you seen what Schefter reported from Diggs' agent?
No.
Stefon Diggs' agent, this is from Adam Schefter, Adisa Bakari, said his client is in Buffalo, has been in Buffalo since yesterday morning, took his physical, met with the head coach and GM the past 2 days, and the Pro Bowl wide receiver will, quote, be there for the entirety of minicamp. That is fed to Schefter straight from Diggs' agent.
You don't know that, but it is.
No, Schefter said. Stefon Diggs' agent said. Literally, the tweet says, hey, his agent told me this.
So it's not a Mr. Editor type of situation. Okay, very good. So, that's been in Buffalo since yesterday morning, took his physical, met with the head coach and the GM the past 2 days. The Pro Bowl wide receiver will be there for the entirety of the minicamp. So what is McDermott doing? Did the agent not tell Sean McDermott this? You remember this situation? There was, and it's not the same, but sometimes information gets lost in the shuffle in ways that we would think would be ridiculous. You remember when Mike Mularkey didn't know where Derrick Henry was for a period of an offseason because Derrick Henry went back to school to finish his degree at Alabama and just didn't tell anybody, and didn't make it clear enough to the powers that be that it became a talking point. And then all of a sudden, Derrick Henry was painted as some sort of malcontent, and he's not showing up for this. And doesn't he want to be the featured back in Tennessee? And doesn't, here's DeMarco Murray who's falling apart at the end. And again, he's going to be this Titan starting running back. But because there was something fell through the cracks in the line of communication between Derrick Henry and Mike Mularkey is openly posing the question. I don't know why he's not here.
By the way, Diggs' contract is 4 years, $96 million. And he is currently... he has a cap hit of almost $15 million for this year. Next year, it'll go up to almost $28 million, and then the Bills will have a potential out for a contract that runs through 2027.
So let's take a look at the situation that affects us locally the most. DeAndre Hopkins a little more closely. There is Rich Eisen, who's am I unfair to say that Rich Eisen is the face of the NFL Network?
No, I don't think that's terribly off base.
In the same way that would you not say Stephen A. Smith is the face of ESPN?
Oh, yeah.
Rich Eisen is that for NFL Network. Now, not the same personality, obviously, but you get my point. The most prominent NFL Network figure is making the loudest argument for DeAndre Hopkins to not join the Tennessee Titans. We'll play that audio for you coming up next. Get into this Hopkins stuff here in just a little bit, but Lucas was laughing at something on the internet in the middle of the commercial break. I think you should bring it to the microphone.
Not even really laughing. It was just more of a... I was horrified.
No, you were laughing.
I was not laughing.
You were horrified, but laughing through your horror.
Yeah, that's fair. I'll allow it.
Explain to me what you saw that both horrified and delighted you.
Well, we pose the question every Tuesday. What made you say, oh, no, over the sports weekend? Oh, no. And somebody, it just happened upon my timeline. We'll do the polls at the end of the show, but somebody replied with the video of Conor McGregor just wiping out the Miami Heat mascot, I guess at halftime of the good job. What is that?
Damn it.
What is it?
I don't know where that's coming from.
What is that?
I can't get it to stop.
What is it?
Where's that coming from?
Mr. Technology over here.
Oh, it's my phone.
Yeah.
What the hell?
What is it?
It's a Fox Sports Oh, yeah. This damn Fox Sports app you had me download for the World Cup. It just plays random Colin Cowherd clips every time I open an article.
Okay, what is this? What is this thing about I made you download an app? I do not ever recall forcing an app upon you during the World Cup. Maybe you asked me, hey, what's the best way to watch these games on the go?
I'm pretty sure you took my phone and
just
downloaded it.
Informed you that, hey, if you want, it's the Fox app. But no, I don't think I made you do anything. Anyway, I guess they had something set up for halftime entertainment, some sort of skit or whatever with Conor McGregor and the Miami Heat mascot. But he absolutely lit the guy up and sent him to the hospital.
Yeah. No, it's really bad. Do you remember when A.J. Dillon went up against that minor league baseball
he just trucked
mascot?
Him.
It was an Oklahoma drill. You think what's the Heat? The Heat's what's the name of the Heat mascot?
I haven't a clue.
It's not Blooper. Blooper's the Phillies.
Yeah, no. Blooper's the Braves.
Blooper's the Braves. Who's the Phillies?
Philly Frenetic.
That Fanatic. Is it Fanatic or Frenetic?
I don't know.
Okay, it's Fanatic. Either way, it's like the Kingfish is the name of the minor league baseball team. I went back and watched this video. There's no way this mascot understood what he was signing up for when he said
on the McGregor thing.
No, on the Oklahoma drill thing with AJ. Either is the answer to the question. Either mascot. The mascot probably thinks, oh yeah, that'd be funny. It'll go viral. That'll do really, really well. And then all of a sudden, how does Coach Mack describe the Traylon Burks concussion against Philadelphia? He got his face broke. That's basically what's happening.
I mean, McGregor straight up clocks him right in the face. The mascot goes down, and then while the mascot is on his back, McGregor goes in for more.
Yeah.
And he hits the guy while he's on the ground. And he got sent to the hospital.
Turns out Conor McGregor, not a good person.
Somebody called in to talk about this on Blaine and Mickey yesterday, but I had not seen the video until just now. And
pretty bad.
I was shocked. I mean, imagine that conversation with whoever wears the Miami Heat mascot suit during those games, pregame. Hey, we got a whole thing planned. It's going to be great. Conor McGregor's here, first of all. Oh, God.
You're going to get to meet him.
Yeah, that's great. That's the good news.
Is it?
The bad news is he's going to clock you in the face, but he's not going to hit you hard. Really? Okay.
Like, how many times does this have to happen to the poor mascots where we realize the mascot costumes are not properly equipped for this rate of force?
There are people in there.
Debatable.
No, there are humans inside those costumes.
You mean to tell me that there's a human being inside that giant raccoon that's running around on the Titans field on a regular basis?
That just ruined that for you?
Yes, it did. Rick in Hendersonville is next. Hey, Rick.
Hey, guys. Buck, my oh no for the day came after you said, I'm going to Bonnaroo. Buck, do you realize there is no bottle service there? There are no cushy chairs and tables. You actually have to carry your own lawn chair. You're going to have to carry your own cooler if you want liquid beverages. And for God's sakes, I heard you the other day saying you don't use public restrooms.
No.
Well, be prepared for all porta potties. So that's my oh no.
It's a good one. Thank you, Rick.
You definitely wouldn't last camping at Bonnaroo.
Well, also,
that's for sure.
To the allegation that I'd be carrying my own cooler and lawn chair, that's why Lucas is going with me.
Buddy, your cooler would be left at your car or wherever you tried to hand it to me.
So you want me to go real snob? The only time I've had the chance to go to Bonnaroo is I got artist passes for Cardi B at Bonnaroo a couple of years ago. which is the air-conditioned tent, the very comfortable chairs that Rick is talking about, the food and the beverage, and I just chose not to go. I didn't want to go.
Oh, you just didn't go?
I didn't go. It was Game of Thrones on a Sunday night. I didn't want to go.
That's fair. It is a good time. I mean, we just have a one-day pass, so we're not going to be spending the whole weekend there.
Buddy, I will drive home from Manchester to Nashville before I use a damn porta potty at Bonnaroo 3 days in. No way.
Do you claim to be a man of the people?
No.
Or you don't even pretend to? Okay.
God, no.
Okay, just
no.
making sure.
Why? Why would I lie? That's the that's the bit. Like, if I was dishonest and I would try and promote some kind of fake man of the people, affect, maybe then you could accuse me of something. But I'm very, very honest about who I am. Let's see what kind of honesty Rich Eisen has for Tennessee Titans fans who think that they offer DeAndre Hopkins the best landing spot as a free agent. Oh, he wasn't ready for that. He's on the phone. Whenever we get to that, we'll hear from Rich Eisen, because basically that's been the talking point. DeAndre Hopkins and the Tennessee Titans, they make the most sense as a fit for one another. But Rich Eisen, and this is courtesy of his show, or was this on the NFL Network?
No, this is the Rich Eisen show.
Okay, let's hear from Rich Eisen on why the Titans don't make a match.
So we'll see what they want to pay him, because it doesn't appear that if you're going ring shopping, Tennessee is the spot to go get a ring. Super Bowl ring. Obviously, as we know, Nash Vegas is the bachelorette party capital of the world. So rings have already been brought.
True.
Broadway.
I'm talking about Super Bowl rings.
And you're saying Tennessee is the place to go?
It is not the place to go shopping for a Super Bowl ring.
I must have misheard you.
No, that is not the place you want to go ring shopping.
Hasn't thrown for 4,000 yards since 2015.
Everyone caps on Tannehill. He runs too, man. You can win with Ryan Tannehill. The question is, can you win a championship with Ryan Tannehill? And with that roster, which is why everybody thinks Derrick Henry's going to wind up going somewhere else, including Akbar Bajabiamila of American Ninja Warrior fame. That was one of my favorite segments of last week. But
so, I mean, it's a bit dismissive, but I mean, is he wrong?
He might be wrong in that Hopkins is ring shopping.
I think that's where he's most wrong, as a matter of fact. I think what he's got most wrong there is the thing that we've heard, and it being counterintuitive to the entire conversation around Hopkins. He's not ring shopping. He wants more money. In fact, he's doing the opposite of shopping. He is being offered or looking to see how many different offers he can receive based on what he believes his price point to be, based on what he's accustomed to making, and based on where he thinks he's still capable of being a productive football player in his career. Now, the level of dismissiveness that Rich Eisen is talking about, and I assume he's meaning organizationally, what he says there is something that I've believed for a long time. You can absolutely be in a Super Bowl. Whether you can win the Super Bowl or not with Ryan Tannehill, that's not the argument. The argument is, can you make it to a Super Bowl? Can you put yourself in the game to give yourself a chance to win a championship? Is Ryan Tannehill a player of a sufficient skill level capable of doing that? The answer is unequivocally yes. We have seen less talented players make it to Super Bowls. You can argue with me if you think he's capable of winning or if you don't think he's clutch or all these other things that people say that don't actually mean anything. They're just there to reinforce whatever bias you have because you haven't seen it before. He may not ever win a championship. There's plenty of quarterbacks who won't win championships. There are plenty of better quarterbacks who won't win championships than Ryan Tannehill. Hell, look at the AFC. How many championships do you think Josh Allen thought he was going to win versus running into the buzzsaw that is perpetually the Kansas City Chiefs? There are plenty of great players who don't win rings. But the idea that they should be completely dismissed. They've only had one Super Bowl appearance in their existence as the Tennessee Titans. They have not been back to that final game since that season. They have been within a game of the Super Bowl, but only how many AFC Championship games have they been in since that Super Bowl run? It's not just the one.
You're talking about the Bills?
No, I'm talking about the Titans.
How many? Oh, I see what you're saying. 2, I believe.
I need to go back and look, but I think 2 is the correct answer. Either way, I think Rich's premise is flawed from the jump because there's two things there. And you think he's being sarcastic about why a lot of people think Derrick Henry's going to end up somewhere else? Because it's not like Rich Eisen isn't connected. Rich Eisen might be the most connected person at NFL media. He's the lead anchor. He's the face of the network. He's the person who all their programming largely is built around.
Yeah, but connected or not connected, that doesn't sound like Rich Eisen saying Derrick Henry's not going to be on the Titans this year.
No. What he's saying is it's why a lot of people don't think he'll be with the Titans. Those are two different things. So I think the premise there is flawed. I know a lot of you said Blaine and Mickey talked about this earlier in the week. That's where you found this clip because I hadn't seen it until you. Or I hadn't heard it.
I saw it pop up. It was aggregated. Rich Eisen show putting it out there.
Okay.
On why DeAndre Hopkins wouldn't come to Tennessee.
Well, I think if Rich's premise was correct that Hopkins is ring shopping, then yeah, he's probably right. This wouldn't be the place that you would land if you were ring shopping. The two places that you would land are the two places that he has chosen not to sign with as of yet, which is Buffalo and Kansas City. Chuck is calling us from Clarksville next.
Hey, Buck. Just, I guess I'm confused. I don't know of any team that is considered in the hunt for a ring that's after him right now. Right now, it looks like it's only New England and Tennessee, and New England definitely is not in a position to be hunting for a ring, even with DeAndre Hopkins. So, yes, I do believe DeAndre Hopkins could be a factor that could get us to a late run in the playoffs and maybe even to the Super Bowl, because the big if on our team is going to be the offensive line. If it gels, if it's good, even half as better than it was last year. This team was 7-3 before Ryan Tannehill got hurt. They could have been 11-6. They could have been 12-5 again. So this team is capable of making a long run with a DeAndre Hopkins. So I don't see where Rich Eisen, unless you tell me Kansas City, Buffalo, and all these Philadelphia and all them are going to pay him the money. I don't see it happening.
Yeah, and that's what it comes down to because Chuck is correct in saying that the only two reported visits that he has are Tennessee and New England. That doesn't mean that he can't sign with another team because reportedly Buffalo and Kansas City have been interested for a longer period of time than the other two, who he has made one who he's made an actual physical visit to, and another one that he is scheduled for, apparently trying to work out some logistics on timing. So, I do think it's interesting the way that it's being looked at versus the way that practically this deal might come about. I got asked last night on the primetime show what percentage chance I would give them to land him. I mean, 4 teams, they're not on equal footing. Just 4 reported teams, not on equal footing right now. Tennessee, I would think, can offer him the most amount of money and the most competitiveness while offering him the most amount of money. Kansas City and Buffalo cannot. I mean, they can find ways to make it work, but not. I mean, it's going to be really, really difficult to navigate some of the issues that Kansas City has coming up with their cap in the next couple of years. Because don't they have to pay Chris Jones? Like, isn't that looming out there? Isn't Chris Jones due a pretty substantial contract? Now that Jeff Simmons and Quentin Williams hasn't gotten a deal yet, You've seen some of the other players start to, or you've seen in the last couple of months, players on the interior defensive line sign contracts. I'm pretty sure Chris Jones is in a situation where he's trying to leverage a contract.
Yeah, he is currently on a 4-year, $80 million deal. This is the final year of it.
Yeah, so I mean, you're talking about some real financial constraints.
Yeah, he's 28. He will be 29 in a couple weeks.
Why did I think Chris Jones was older than that?
Yeah, I guess I thought so too.
Either way, does Hopkins make sense here? Yes. Does he make the most sense here? No. Do the situations that make the most sense for him in terms of winning a Super Bowl have the money to pay him? No. Can they make it? Yes. Are they willing to? Probably not. So it's a choose-your-own-adventure type of path. Theoretically, all 4 of these teams could make him the offer that he wants. It's just how many other mitigating factors they have going into this thing. And I think that Tennessee, when you come back to all of it, I think that Tennessee should probably be given the highest percentage chance of any of the 4 reported teams to land him. But that's like people are assuming just because this is starting that there's going to be some resolution on it. Like we got an email from our boss about the idea of working Monday because it's a national holiday on Monday, and we are scheduled to have the day off. We got an email from our boss saying, "Hey, if DeAndre Hopkins signs with the Titans over the weekend, is anybody available to do the shows?" And I'm looking at that and saying, I mean, one, I think it's highly unlikely. Two, one, it's good to be prepared for the possibility of that, and I appreciate that our boss is thinking that way. But also, there's no reason that DeAndre Hopkins is going to sign over the weekend. One free agent visit, and the other one's New England, maybe? No. There's more teams that are interested in that, and he's going to want to hear them.
Yeah, and all it would take would be one injury, right? One injury before or at the beginning of training camp for him to get a call from a team that he wouldn't otherwise get.
I bet it takes a couple of days, and this is just an educated guess, but I bet it takes a couple of days into training camp before he finally puts pen to paper with the team. Because I do think he's going to want to wait for every available option because he's going to see the money. He's not going to like it. That, I think, is the thing that's going to push this thing out the longest. How many more teams can you get interested the longer that this drags out? Last call for phone calls, 615-737-1045. We'll get to a couple coming up next. We'll update the polls, but Lucas tells me quickly we have a quick thing.
Ian Rappaport, real quick, on Stefon Diggs, says just now on Twitter, it seems Diggs was there yesterday. If you missed it, Sean McDermott, speaking to Bills reporters, said that Stefon Diggs is not a mandatory minicamp and that he is, quote, very concerned about it. Rappaport says it seems Diggs was there yesterday and there this morning. He left prior to the start of practice with the thinking emoji.
Yes. From Rappaport,
yes,
not Diggs.
From Rappaport. And Jonathan Jones saying the same thing. Diggs was in Buffalo at facilities yesterday and this morning, but left before the start of practice. So an odd situation playing out in Buffalo right now.
Very.
Like, what could that possibly be?
I have no idea. I mean, he just got a deal last year.
Yeah, it can't be a holdout, right? Surely it's not that. You got a massive deal. So
nobody got paid more than that. Who was the biggest wide receiver contract was who?
What did Tyreek Hill get? Tyreek Hill and Devontae Adams. I mean, there were a bunch last year.
They were, but Diggs got that deal at the same time. Like, Diggs got an extension the same time those dudes did. Nobody eclipsed that this offseason, so I can't imagine it's a money play.
Yeah, I mean, a 4-year, $96 million deal that he's played 1 year of. I can't imagine that it's anything contract related. And I don't know how the Bills would be able to get out of that.
You want to talk about something that, I mean, they still have Josh Allen. Josh Allen's overwhelming, but that's a team that can't run the football, that relies on the quarterback to run the football a great deal, has questions on the offensive line, and really just had Diggs at receiver.
I mean, unless it's injury related, I don't know.
No, it's speculation at this point. If more details become available, we'll obviously keep you updated. I'm sure Blaine and Mickey, 3HL, will do the same, but we'll update the polls and wrap things up coming up next. Wrapping up for the day, 615-737-1045 is how you jump in. If you don't get in with us, Blaine and Mickey, 3HL, coming up after that. Hey, Thursday, we're going to be out at Hattie B's on Charlotte Pike. It's 615 Day, as a matter of fact. So we're looking forward to being out at Hattie B's for at Charlotte Pike. If you're out and about for lunch, come hang out. It should be a good time. We think we're going to have a special guest out there with us as well to tell you about a really cool event that we have coming up on July the 13th, Thursday, July the 13th, as a matter of fact, at Kings Bowl in Cool Springs, the annual charity bowling event. This year's charity, Home Street Home, the great work that they do for the unhoused community, the homeless community here in Middle Tennessee. Stephen and Andy are such phenomenal people. The story is crazy, and the work that they do on a purely volunteer basis is wild. So we're going to see if we can't do a little bit to uplift them and help, by extension, uplift the homeless community here in Middle Tennessee. So you can get your tickets for the bowling event on July the 13th, Thursday, July the 13th at Kings Bowl in Franklin at 1045thezone.com, and we can't wait to hang out with you then.
You never know who might show up.
Stop doing that. I wish you would stop doing that.
I love Peyton Manning.
Am I wrong?
Yes.
Never know.
I have both of the people in that clip, Peyton Manning nor Donde Plowman. Not Donde Plowman.
Bev Davenport.
Bev Davenport. Wrong chancellor.
I'm just saying, we are in talks.
Who? You?
Just we. I didn't say
the royal we.
Who I'm in talks with.
Yes. In fact, you are quite literally messaging who you are alleging to be in talks with. It's like when you're questioning who. When I say I'm citing sources and I'm reading you text from my phone without giving you names, and you say who? Who are you talking to back there?
Yeah, but we're trying to sell tickets to an event here. There needs to be some mystery. I'm just saying you never know, and you can't deny that that's not true.
It's quite literal. You never know who might be at the bowling event. If you would like to be at the bowling event, 1045thezone.com.
Nikola Jokic, I'm just saying.
No. You know where he wants to be? He wants to be home.
He wants to be in Serbia.
He wants to be home. Have you ever seen a less enthusiastic champion being so dominant and just wanting nothing to do with any of the celebration? You see him shaking the champagne bottle afterwards? It's the most limp, disinterested popping of bottles I've ever seen of any professional athlete ever. This was Nikola Jokic speaking yesterday after the Nuggets win the championship over the Miami Heat about, I don't want to stick around for the parade.
You said after the Lakers win, you said you were surprised that you didn't feel more. So I'm curious what you are feeling right now and if you're looking forward to a parade coming up in Denver.
When is parade? When is parade?
Thursday.
No. I need to go home. Okay.
He puts his face in his hands and he's so exasperated.
So does he mean like Serbia? Is he trying to get out the country?
I imagine so. Yeah. I mean, where would home be if not Serbia? He lives in Denver, right? If he's not in Denver, I imagine
would assume,
home
but like, is he saying he's
is.
just going to stay at his house instead of going to the parade, or is he trying to get to Serbia ASAP?
I think he just wants to go home. I appreciate this so much. He just does his job. I think Mike Golick Jr. was talking about this man has achieved perfect work-life balance. Just show up, do your job, win a championship, historic run of triple-doubles, NBA Finals MVP. I just want to go home.
He just wants nothing to do with the spotlight whatsoever. I was listening to a Doris Burke interview the other day, and she said she was talking to Jokic like, Nikola, I just want to sit down, do like a little bit of film study with you. Like, I just want to help people understand the greatness of your game. And he just goes, Doris, in that very thick Eastern European accent. Doris, we're not doing this.
I appreciate it so much, man. I love the question, too. You said you were surprised you didn't feel more. Are you feeling things, Nikola?
Are you feeling things?
Are you having feelings
about
winning the NBA championship?
I'm the least athletic thing out here, and I've just been dominating everybody for the past 2 months. I want to go home. Give me my ring. Give me my Larry O'Brien trophy, and let me get the bleep out of here.
By the way, with the NBA Finals in the rear view, the NBA draft is coming up, and there is one local prospect to watch, Ben Shepherd of the Belmont Bruins. Belmont is doing a cool thing here at BelmontBruins.com where you can go and submit your prediction on what selection Ben Shepherd will be between 1 and 58, and you would win a Ben Shepherd Belmont game-worn jersey, 2 courtside seats to any designated Belmont game next year. A picture with the Belmont men's basketball team this coming season. $100 gift certificate to. There's a bunch of stuff in there. So just a cool thing going on at BelmontBruins.com.
Fun. Were you just perusing BelmontBruins.com and happened to stumble upon that?
I was talking to Greg Sage over there, the SID, and I've seen them kind of promoting it. Ben Shepherd. I'm trying to think.
Monster year for Ben
Shepherd. Is the most local prospect we have. What Vol could get drafted this year, right? Kumwa's coming back. Kumwa's transferring to Michigan. Josiah Jordan-James is coming back. Santiago Vescovi's coming back.
Yeah, nobody that declared stayed in if they did, right?
Yeah, I don't really know what Julian Phillips' situation is right now, but yeah, Ben Shepherd is Tennessee's most local NBA draft prospect. So go check out that contest.
Polls, please.
Down goes Frazier. Down goes Frazier. The polls have closed and the votes have been tallied. It's the segment where bias takes over and nuance goes to die. Now, here's your favorite Buck Rising Show correspondent, Lucas Pan. Make that poll Zika.
Presented by Two Rivers Ford. You can custom order any new Ford from Two Rivers. They sell below MSRP on any non-specialty new Ford. What in sports made you say, oh no, over the weekend? Mike Herndon says the most sad trombone ending to an epic game that I've ever seen. Noted Texas fan Mike Herndon with that walk-off, lost in the lights on the little fly ball that sent Stanford to the College World Series and sent Texas home.
If anything ever deserved the Curb Your Enthusiasm theme music in the background of a sporting event, it was the way that Texas lost that game.
V-Love says everything Baby Gronk makes him say, oh no.
You know what? I came in fully intending to make Baby Gronk my oh no, and then I thought about it. The more that I thought about it, the more interviews I read about it, I just don't even want to talk about the Baby Gronk thing. It just makes me sad.
It's gross.
It's really gross. People like that, the parents, should be held responsible in a more serious fashion than what is being done. It's got Little Hercules vibes. He famously has a lot of health problems, Little Hercules does at this point in his life. So Baby Gronk seems to be on a similar trajectory. Let that be the only time that Baby Gronk is discussed on this radio show.
We'll get into this some more tomorrow, but other than baseball this year, obviously, Tennessee has an opportunity at the College World Series, but which Tennessee program is closest to winning a championship? 50% say it's football, 33% say it's softball, who made it to the national semifinals just now in the Women's College World Series. 13% say men's hoops, 4% say women's hoops.
50% think football? I guess of those options.
Yeah. Baseball is the obvious answer, right? They are literally like a few wins away from being a national champion in Omaha. We can talk about it tomorrow.
Yeah, let's get into that tomorrow because I disagree with that.
Who is the best owner in professional sports right now? Karen says Miss Amy. Chambers says Stan Kroenke.
It is Stan Kroenke. We'll explain to you why more tomorrow. Yet another thing on the polls that we didn't get to, but that means we have more content to talk about tomorrow.
Name one good reason why DeAndre Hopkins would sign with the Patriots over the Titans. Mike Herndon, back at it, says wants to learn a thing or two from style icon Bill Belichick to help him in his post-football career. A photo of Belichick in I guess a short sleeve,
sleeveless
tattered
hoodie.
holes all everywhere. Yeah. But Roy, a lot of other people say more money.
Yeah, if they got more cash, that'll be the reason. Wherever it happens, it'll be because more money happens there in DeAndre Hopkins' situation. But we will see what those things pan out to be. I'd certainly not expect any news this week. But with the Hopkins visit to New England, we'll see.